Hi everyone, today I'm here to present my talk on my paper, Rethinking Creative Labor, a Sociotechnical Examination of Creativity and Creative Work on TikTok that I wrote with Dr. Bryan Semaan. I'm going to begin with this thought. User-generated content sustains online platforms, and without it, social platforms like TikTok or YouTube would just be empty scaffolding. Today, I'm going to explore the relationship behind the intentions that people have behind making their user-generated content and how platform infrastructures impact those intentions. So what then is content? When you think about it, we apply the word content to literally anything we see online. Why do we call a 5-hour-long video essay content while also calling a 10-character tweet content as well? By calling it content, we often exaggerate or flatten the work involved in preparing, producing, and presenting a creative product on an online platform. So then what is a better definition of content if we're not trying to flatten the work involved? Content is a form of creative work, often done without remuneration of end users of a particular platform, which supports that platform in the form of ad revenue and user engagement. In research, this free labor that online creatives do is framed as creative labor, the work of professionalizing and monetizing individual media production. The thing is, though, social media companies assume that everyone who routinely creates and shares things on their platform wants to monetize it. The routines of online creative work are these contextual, repeated, and recognizable patterns of action that people do. And to enact these routines, people often draw on infrastructures, which are the underlying foundational structures of any large-scale system that supports routine societal function. And here, it's also good to note that infrastructures can be human or technical, and they're defined in their use as they both shape and are shaped by social practices, like, for instance, routine creative work. The creative labor that we routinely do is largely understood as efforts to professionalize and monetize creative work in online contexts. Creative work labor is also broken down into two subcategories of labor. Visibility labor, the work involved in ensuring that the creative product is translatable to the platform, and relational labor, which is the work involved in crafting and maintaining an audience of a particular platform or across multiple platforms. The creative labor understands creative success and intention based on platform metrics, the likes, clicks, views, etc., as the only way to really measure the creative success of an object of creative work. Creatives, however, especially those with really small audiences, have complex and really often overlapping intentions behind their creative work that go beyond making money or professionalizing. And this paper explores this fact, asking, how might people's intentions for creating content come into conflict with platform ideals about what creative labor means? To investigate this research project, this research question, we choose to look at creative work on TikTok. Now here it's important to note that TikTok is a really popular platform with young people. It's an algorithmically curated space that is notoriously hard to do creative work and interact with audiences on. And it's also a space where queer, trans, and disabled creatives can really struggle to have their creative work seen for various reasons. For the purposes of time, I'm not going to go into detail with my methods, but these findings come from 15 semi-structured interviews with creatives on TikTok. In assessing how people's intentions for creating content may come into conflict with platform ideals around what creative labor means, we identified 3 broad categories of creative intent for our participants that TikTok's infrastructure supported. These were creating for professional, social, or just straight up creative reasons. With these categories in mind, I will discuss how TikTok's infrastructure supports, yet also introduces challenges to creatives. Participants described how TikTok helped them find a niche that aligned with their professional intentions for their creative work. However, focusing on a single topic or being in a particular niche isn't always a good thing, as TikTok's technical infrastructures conceptualize the creative work that people do as about one thing and one thing only. P7, for example, is a puppeteer who makes videos with his puppets, but he also really likes to sing with other TikTok users using the duet feature. He explains, And so, boom, now I'm singing with someone who's really talented. And like I said, it doesn't really perform well. It's certainly more for me than it is for my audience. P7's creative intention of expressing himself through song doesn't do well because TikTok's technical infrastructures, in this case, the content recommendation algorithm, understands P7 as a puppeteer. And the push to professionalize embedded into TikTok's infrastructure doesn't allow P7 to create outside of the niche of his puppet work and have any sort of creative success. Another way that participants reported doing creative work on TikTok was with the intent to use it for social purposes, that is, to interact with friends, family, and peers. However, TikTok's human infrastructures aren't perfect, and many participants found these challenging for their creative intentions. P5, a Jewish college student who occasionally makes and interacts with videos about his Jewish identity, reports constantly seeing anti-Semitic content on TikTok, which he attributes to TikTok understanding all videos about Jewish identity to be the same, whether they be positive or negative. TikTok's technical infrastructure co-constructs P5's content about his Jewish identity with the human infrastructures of TikTok's audiences, connecting P5's videos with unwanted hateful audiences and making it difficult for him to engage with his Jewish peers on TikTok. Participants also discussed how they use TikTok as a creative space and outlet, yet TikTok presented challenges in that the platform's infrastructure did not allow participants to do the creative work they wanted to do in the way that they wanted to do it. Participants shared experiences with unfair content moderation, technological limitations for Android phone users, and the challenges they had as neurodivergent people using TikTok's interface to do their creative work. P3 describes how TikTok forces creatives to make decisions around what will get their creative work seen, and therefore how TikTok forces them to compromise the subject of their creative work in order to do things like activist work while still meeting TikTok's fun and positive community norm. The relationship between TikTok and the creative, where the creative co-constructs both the platform for themselves and for others, leads to feelings of alienation and burnout. Our findings show that TikTok's infrastructure is shifting this relationship between the creative and their creative intentions by alienating their creative from their creative routine. We see this in three specific ways: alienation from the audience, from the self, and from the art or creative end product. The audience that TikTok's technical infrastructures create, which then become the human infrastructure by which creative success is measured, do not value or see the work that creatives do in the same way as the creative, which alienates the creative from their audiences, as the audience does not understand the work involved in making the creative end product. While a creative is always free to continue to make whatever they want, the pressures of success that are so embedded into TikTok's infrastructural push creatives into niches of easily classifiable creative content. And the human infrastructures of the audience and their constant demand for more of the same things serve to alienate the audience from themselves as anything other than a one-trick pony. By imposing these constraints and the creative choosing to create under these constraints, the creative is alienated from their art as they are no longer free to engage with it or do it as they so desire. So in order to help alleviate some of these challenges and feelings of alienation from creative work, we suggest that platforms consider the following. Firstly, uncoupling platform metrics from creative success. This could be done by creating tiers of either desired audience size that creatives could opt into, or allowing creatives to opt in or out of algorithmic categorization. Platforms could also create a changeable or malleable structure around the goals that creatives have for their particular work. And finally, by limiting the demand for more creative work that is allowed to be posted to an individual's account would help slow the objectification of the artist by both the platform and their audience. With these recommendations in mind, I'd like to propose the following around questions of creative labor. Firstly, that we as researchers focus on the work of creativity beyond monetization and professionalization efforts. Secondly, that we consider how the platform helps or hinders the creative process. This is also the focus of my dissertation work. And finally, that we consider how questions of visibility are tied to platform infrastructures around the content and identity of the creative. I'll leave you with this final thought. So much of social computing and HCI research is underpinned by the creative work done and shared by online creatives. We need to get away from calling it content and focus more on what that content actually is and the creative labor that goes into producing it. And with that, I'd like to say thank you to our participants, to my lab, to Bryan, obviously, and to the anonymous reviewers who made this paper so much better. Thank you so much.